Strasberg, he said this. Roll it.
In America, there's a failure to appreciate Europe's leading role in the world. Instead of celebrating your dynamic union and seeking to partner with you to meet common challenges, there have been times where America has shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive. So let me say this as clearly as I can. America is changing.
All right. And that was in a town hall and speech, by the way, in Strasbourg, Germany, where he made the case. Now, President Obama believes that we are causing Islamic terrorism. I believe Islam causes the terrorism because it's pointed to in the doctrine. I believe in moderate Islam to a degree and certainly support of Muslims who are moderate in that way. Ultimately, yeah, I would like them to convert to Christianity. I think we all would. Having said that, it's not that neat and it's not that clean. And the debate we're having now, among other debates, is where we are in the war. How do we confront these groups? Where's our place? Where's a strategy? Because we are still at war, whether the president wants to acknowledge it or not. And we're not at war with chemical weapons. We're at war with Islamic terrorists, networks, and state supporters, and the ideology itself. With all that said, the debate shifted in this current discussion to a debate on Iraq. You say, no, it's not really on Iraq, Crane. Yes, it is. It's about Iraq's history and what actually happened. Because now we look at Iraq as pretty much a client state of the Iranian regime, which the regime has more blood, second only to al-Qaeda, with the amount of American blood on its hands. A chief supporter of Hamas, or excuse me, 40% of Hamas's funding, that's right, Sunni Hamas, that's from Iran. Hezbollah is an arm of the Iranian government that is arming and fighting with Assad as we speak, among other, as well as attacking Israel. But I digress. The point is that in 2008, the surge was having its success. And in 2011, we blew a status of forces agreement, and that's why we don't have any assets there now. President Obama ending wars, withdrawing from the world, believing that we are the cause. Our presence is the cause, rather than what they've stated is the true cause and their goal, a worldwide caliphate. So the discussion became on Iraq, and a lot of things have been said about Iraq. I thought this debate and this exchange between Christopher Hitchens and Ronald Reagan Jr. in 2005 was a great way to maybe clear up some things that people are saying even today about Iraq. It begins with Ron Reagan saying to Christopher Hitchens, yes, Christopher has passed on, Christopher, I'm not sure that I buy the idea that these attacks are a sign we actually are winning the war on terror. I mean, how many more victories do we need, do we really want to endure? And revealing the fact that, yeah, we continue to be attacked. This is 2005, a devolving situation in Iraq. And Christopher Hitchens answered. Roll it.
Well, it depends how you think it started, sir. I mean, these movements had taken over Afghanistan, had very nearly taken over Algeria in an extremely bloody war, which actually was eventually won by Algerian society. They had sent death squads to try and kill my friend Salman Rushdie for the offense of writing a novel in England. They had sent death squads to Austria and Germany, the Iranians had, for example, to try and kill Kurdish Muslim leaders there. If you make the mistake that I thought I heard you making just before we came on the air, of attributing rationality and motive to this, and to say that it's about anything but itself, you make a great mistake, and you end up where you ended up, saying that the cause of terrorism is fighting against it. The root cause, I mean.
So this is what, in essence, the left has said, and many in the war that oppose our presence in that region and view us not as the world's policemen, And there's more of a degree to that comment. Nonetheless, the debate continued. But what Hitchens pointed out was the fact that we are reacting and responding to the terrorism is not the cause of it. A great point. Roll it.
You even said, extraordinarily to me, that there was no terrorist problem in Iraq before 2003. Do you know nothing about the subject at all? Do you wonder how Mr. Zarqawi got there under the rule of Saddam Hussein? Have you ever heard of Abu Nidal? Have you ever heard of Abu Nidal, the most wanted man in the world, who was sheltered in Baghdad? The man who pushed Leon Klinghoffer off the boat was sheltered by Saddam Hussein. The man who blew up the World Trade Center in 1993 was sheltered by Saddam Hussein. And you have the nerve to say that terrorism is caused by resisting it and by deposing governments that endorse it.
No, actually,
at this
I didn't
stage,
say that,
after what happened in London
I did say,
yesterday,
though, was that Iraq was not a center of terrorism before we went in there, but it might be now.
How can you know
could make
so
the
little
claim
about
that you
it?
just made about any other country in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia.
Absolute
So do you think we ought to invade Saudi Arabia, where most of the hijackers from 9/11 came from? Following your logic, Christopher.
No, excuse me. The hijackers may have been Saudi and Yemeni, but they were not envoys of the Saudi Arabian government.
And he goes on to talk about how Yassin and Abu Nidal, Yassin's the man who mixed the chemicals for the first World Trade Center bombing, were envoys of the Iraqi government. Now, the reason I play that is that actual debate started with a discussion of the bombings, London bombings, that took place on 7/7. And people reacting to that say, look, if you weren't in Iraq, this wouldn't have happened. They can say it even today with the attempted beheading and killing and murder of a British soldier this past year in London. And the idea that you're causing this, this is why when we're not really going at what is our enemy's ideological foundation. Now, again, I bring this up because the question is not that simple to say, are we going to support Al-Qaeda? Or are we going to support Iran? There's more options, although it's a bit convoluted, and it certainly was clear and better options 2 years ago when President Obama did not act. But it requires us to view history as it was, not as our ideology or our partisanship or, well, how we feel about the practice of war or President Bush or even President Obama, but what actually happened. And what actually happened in Iraq was when we went in, we looked at what had happened before, the support for terrorism, and, well, Zarqawi getting aid. I mean, that's among other things. I mean, the guy who mixed the chemicals for the 93 World Trade Center bombing, Abu Nidal, the guy who rolled off Klinghoffer off the ship. I mean, you've got examples of the support for terror and no operational relationship, but certainly shared goals at times. And people said, well, going back and looking back, well, they didn't have WMD, but every intelligence agency said they did. And arguably they were moved, many of them. And there are reports of that, even coming from James Clapper, by the way, interestingly enough. Amazing how things change when there's a different president. So you may say Iraq was the wrong war, but don't tell me Bush lied. And as this is brought up today, that we're all suspicious about the intelligence and, oh, maybe Syria did, don't blame President Bush for that, because there were many reasons to deal with Saddam Hussein. And a world without Saddam Hussein is a better place. I would say the problem was in 2004, we stopped moving forward. We made the decision to pull back. That was after Gaddafi declared his nuclear weapons program. We were gaining ground. And arguably, we'd be in a much better place today if we would have kept going. And yes, I am talking about regime change in Iran, but I'm not talking about an invasion. Again, I digress. Here's the point. When we look at 9/11 and we look at Afghanistan and Iraq, and now we're dealing with a situation in Syria and the use of chemical weapons, but more importantly, we're dealing with Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, an element of Al-Qaeda, as well as the Iranian regime. and we say, well, these things aren't really connected. It's just the chemical weapons. No, this is part of the same war. It's the same war our number one ally in the world's fighting. That's being Israel. We're asking them to make deals with these terrorists. We're making deals with a murderous regime that's supporting a brutal regime that is a client state and chief ally also of Iran, which is a terrorist supporting regime. So we've got all sorts of problems there. We'll come back to this conversation with Ryan Morrow, but I thought it was interesting to say, you know, Bush lied, people died, Iraq had nothing to do with terrorism. As you heard in the last debate a little while back, but still all true, these were facts. It doesn't change. We should get history right. Free and Durham's Nothing But Truth returns with your phone calls. We will return with the question, where were you on 9/11? And how do you describe it? Do you describe it as an act of war? How do you talk to your kids about it? 1-888-589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. Free and Durham's Nothing But Truth. 9/11, 2001. Where were you? 888-589-8840. AFR Call.
I'm Mark McKee, Passionate Harvest. I love creating new blends. I like them to be a story within themselves as well. When you think about courage, you think about being bold and bold in the Lord. So we came up with a couple of coffees. One is the Uganda that directly supports orphans and widows. And then we added with it an Indonesian, a difficult place to share the gospel. And those people in those countries sharing the gospel, man, that's courage. What a great story to go along with the coffee.
ThomasStreetCoffee.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Moore.
And I'm Herman Eben. And our show, Great Relationships, airs right here on American Family Radio, Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central.
Join us as Great Relationships pursues the best in work, in life, in love.
Yes, Paul, but it's not just the radio show. You can go to greatrelationships.com. That's GR8 relationships.com. And watch how God can redeem, resurrect, and restore relationships.
We'll see you this Saturday at 1 p.m. Central.
Right thinking, right relationships, right now.
The American Family Association is hosting our second annual retreat to the Great Smoky Mountains. Join us this October at the Billy Graham Training Center at The Cove in Asheville, North Carolina for worship, teaching, fellowship, and just plain fun. Speakers include Governor Mike Huckabee, Alex McFarland of Exploring the Word, Dan Celia of Financial Issues, J.J. Jasper of AFR's J.J. and Ron in the Morning, and of course, AFA President Tim Wildman.
It's a beautiful place. We look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be a lot of fun, very encouraging, and inspirational.
Get away to this faith, family, and finance gathering at the Billy Graham Training Center at The Cove in Asheville, North Carolina, October 1st through 4th. For more details, go to afr.net, or to register, simply call 800-950-2092. That's 800-950-2092.
News, pop culture, and the quirkier side of life. The Todd Starnes Commentary.
It was 1 year ago today that the American consulate in Benghazi was attacked by terrorists. President Obama blamed it on a YouTube video. 4 Americans were murdered, including our ambassador to Libya. Countless others were injured. The Obama administration refuses to release the names of the wounded. Those who tried to speak out have been subjected to threats, intimidation. Whispers of a cover-up echo across Washington. And here we are, 1 year later. Not a single person has been brought to justice. Not a single American life has been avenged. What difference does it make, Hillary Clinton asked lawmakers. The administration's response stands in stark contrast to recent developments in Syria. It's appalling to say, but President Obama seems to get worked up over dead Syrians, but not so much dead Americans. I'm Todd Starnes.
Selective outrage, good point.